Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our final Autism Parent Series session for the 22-23 academic year. Tonight's topic is going to address self-determination, and we're especially excited to offer this session during April, which is recognized as Autism Acceptance and Awareness Month. My name is Kathleen Donovan, and I have the wonderful privilege of working at your Parent Resource Center, along with my colleague who's here with us tonight, Emma Paral, and my other colleague, Gina DeSalvo, who sends her regards. Emma, would you mind just offering a quick greeting in Spanish and letting everyone know about how they can access interpretation services, please?
Yes. Buenas noches y bienvenidos a nuestra sesión de autismo. Y en la cajita del chat ya les puse las indicaciones para cómo pueden escuchar la interpretación en español. Y si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor me lo ponen en la cajita del chat. Gracias. Okay, Kathleen.
Thank you, Emma. And many thanks to Julio Becerto, who is serving as our simultaneous interpreter tonight. He's incredibly skillful and has been a wonderful support to us for several years. So Julio, thank you for being with us tonight. And then I'd also like to thank two of our Autism Low Incidence Disability Specialists who are with us this evening, Laura DePatch and Deborah Hammer, who you'll get to meet in just a moment. I say this probably if you've been to these series, you will have heard me say this, but I just cannot thank this team enough. They, regardless of their staffing or staffing shortages that they've experienced from time to time, they do amazing work supporting students and staff, but are also incredibly generous in their support of families. They always welcome talking with families and are wonderful about sharing their incredible wealth of knowledge and their expertise with us. So I won't take too much time, but I just want to thank them again for their generosity and their wonderful willingness to support families as well as students and staff. So with that being said, I'm going to toss over to Deborah Hammer. Thanks again, Deb, for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Kathleen. We really are happy to have this opportunity. I know I speak for Laura and our other colleague, Erin Donahue, and myself, that we really enjoy getting to know parents because when we're supporting your children, it's important that we get to know you too. And for you to know that we are here for you. We can answer questions that you have about autism across the lifespan of your child, point you in the right direction to resources, and be a member of the IEP team if necessary. So please do know that we are here for you. And tonight, I am thrilled to talk about one of my very, very favorite topics, self-determination. So thank you for coming. So we should consider a few things. Your children will spend most of their lives as adults. There are no federal entitlements to provide training or supports to our students once they are adults. Any services they receive, it's up to local and state governments to choose whether they want to provide those or not. Currently, most adults with developmental disabilities are extremely dependent on other people to make decisions that affect many aspects of their daily lives. That includes things like what time they're going to go to bed, how they're going to get somewhere, what kind of food they're going to eat, sometimes even what clothing they're going to wear. And this is as adults. And really important decisions too, like where they're going to live for the rest of their lives, their money, whether they're going to get to vote or not, if they're going to get married or not. So a lot of these decisions are made for them rather than with them or from them. So I want you to imagine something. I want you to think about a birthday party. And you keep hearing the word birthday party. Birthday party comes up periodically. And you know that people are planning birthday parties, but you don't know what one is because no one ever invites you. You just hear this term. and you know it's something important, but you just don't know, have a clue, like what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? Then suddenly, when you become a teenager, you hear once again about a birthday party and you think, nah, that's no big deal. But this time you're invited and you come to the party and you're surprised, confused. There's fire, there's singing, it's loud, people have noisemakers, it's really crowded, and it's overwhelming. Now, read this again and think about, instead of birthday party, it's IEP. And this is what we often do with our students. That's from a longer essay called Why Is This Cake on Fire? So why is student involvement in the IEP so important? There are a few reasons. And some of these reasons actually came from students that I've worked with. IDEA 2004, which is the law that we are currently working on that involves students and requires IEPs and least restrictive environment and other aspects of special education, requires that all students be allowed to participate to the best of their abilities in their IEP. Students need to feel empowered in their education and their future. We know that kids have more participation and better outcomes if they are part of the decision-making for whether it's what kind of related services that they are receiving or accommodations that they are using. They're more likely to actually use them if they have a say in that. They have more buy-in and they'll participate more. And students over the age of 18 have the right to sign their IEPs as long as they don't have guardianship. So the first step to a successful student-centered IEP is self-determination. If we want our kids to be involved in their IEP, they have to learn self-determination skills. But what is the self-determination that you keep hearing about? It's really three things. We can break it down into knowing and believing in yourself, knowing what you want your future to be like and how to make plans to achieve this future, knowing the supports that you need to take control of your life. So you have to know it's not about independence. It's about knowing where to go to get the supports that you need for what you want. There are different domains of self-determination, and those are self-awareness, self-advocacy, self-regulation, goal setting, problem solving, internal locus of control, and decision-making. And I've written some power standards with a couple colleagues or former colleagues, Christina Eagle and Laura DiNardo. And we wrote these for a couple reasons. Because it sort of illustrates what we mean when we say each of these domains. And these are examples of skills that we want our adults to have mastered. And so they need to start learning them as children. So these are things that could be IEP goals, but they can also be things that you work on with your children. They're just skills for life. So I'm going to go through each of the different domains for you. The first one is self-awareness. And self-awareness is knowing your own strengths, your abilities, your limitations, and knowing how to use those attributes which are unique to you to have a beneficial influence on your life. And the power standards, and I'm not going to read them all, you will have access to this. But some examples of them include, what are you good at? What are you good at academically? What are you good at socially? What are you good at with jobs? Do you prefer vacuuming, or do you prefer being outside and planting flowers? Do you prefer math or reading? What kinds of interests and hobbies and preferred activities do you enjoy? Do you prefer cooking or reading or art or running or swimming. I mean, we all have such a wide variety of differences in our lives, and we need to help our students identify what are their interests, what would they like their hobbies to be. We also want to help them understand what their non-preferred activities and what their dislikes are. Do they dislike loud noises? Do they dislike crowded areas? Do they dislike getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning? Those are the kinds of things we need to help our kids identify as well, because that's going to also shape their future and being able to make choices for themselves. And self-awareness, it also includes participating in your IEP. Self-advocacy, being able to speak up for yourself to defend a cause of personal interest. And those can include things like, what is your disability? That's a critical thing to know. They're going to be hearing about their disability, and it's just part of who they are. It's nothing that should be stigmatized or something that they're ashamed of. We don't ever want our kids to think that their disability, whether it's autism or intellectual disability or learning disability or anything else, is something to hide or be ashamed of. They are entitled to accommodations, legal accommodations for the rest of their lives. But they have to speak up and they have to disclose their disability and how it affects them in order to receive their legal accommodations. So they need to know what it is. They need to know the good things, the pluses and the minuses, the challenges associated with whatever their disability label is. So that's something that we want to expose our kids to from a very early age. We want them to know how it affects them, because everyone with autism is different. Everyone with an intellectual disability is different. We want them to be able to ask for help. We want them to know who to go to and how to ask for it in an expected way. We need them to know that screaming and tantruming is not an expected way of asking for help. Going up to random strangers isn't an expected way, but going up to someone who wears a uniform, such as a police officer or somebody who's wearing an ID tag in a grocery store, those are the people to ask for help. We want them to know what accommodations and supports they require. Self-regulation is the next one, and that is the process of monitoring your own actions. And that includes understanding your emotions, understanding how to change your state of regulation. If you are really antsy and nervous, how do you calm yourself down? If you are at risk at falling asleep on the job, how do you wake yourself up? Many of us have just caffeine to do that. Some of us go for a run in the morning. There's lots of different ways that affect different people. And our kids need to know that. They need to know how to change their state of regulation. And they need to know if they're angry, how to calm themselves down. They need to know what the expectation for self-regulation is in different settings, because it does change. At a baseball game, it's okay to stand up and shout and make a lot of noise. In math class, not so much. The expectations are going to change from setting to setting. They need to know what strategies work for them to help them maintain expected behaviors. Is it a fidget? Is it sitting on an exercise ball? Is it having the ability to pace or take a break? We all need different things to help us at different times. And so we need to help our kids identify what their menu is going to be. The next is goal setting and attainment. And that is, how do you set goals for yourself? How do you put them into action? And how do you know if you've achieved success or not? And goals can be little things like getting your lunch ready for yourself in the morning, or making sure that your shoes are on the right feet. Or it can be a long-term goal like getting your driver's license or passing a particularly challenging class. We need to help our children learn how to break those goals up into smaller pieces and how to follow the steps to achieve their goals for themselves. Problem solving is a really big one. They need to be able to how to identify a problem, identify different solutions, and make choices. We don't want our kids to get stuck. I know a guy who got fired from his job, a guy who with a lot of skills and ability, but one morning the bus didn't come on time, and his not knowing how to solve that problem, he just went home. He didn't identify maybe looking up to see if there was another bus or knowing that maybe he should contact his employer. So problem solving, working through it, dealing with difficult situations that are going to come up in life. And that can be everything from forgetting your lunch at home to, having to take a different route. Internal locus of control. This is the belief that one has control over the outcomes that are most important to their life. And this is a really important one because it's all about understanding that you have agency. You need to know that the choices that you make could have positive or negative consequences, that they affect other people, that they affect you, that other people's choices may affect you, but you can't control them. Being able to accept feedback. If somebody tells you you were too loud, being able to listen to that and understand why. It's perspective taking. It's accepting that you've made a mistake and maybe you need to change something in your life. This is a challenge for most people. People with and without disabilities. This is probably one of the harder areas of self-determination to master. I would say it's a work in progress for many people, but it's something that we definitely want to help support our students with. Decision-making, being able to choose between more than two known options. So when presented with options, being able to choose what is the best one. What is expected? What are the consequences of those choices? Which choice is aligned with their own goals for themselves? And then being able to, the hardest part of this would be, what do you do with an open-ended choice or situation where you're not given clear-cut answers? So these are all areas in decision-making we want to help our children with. So how do we support self-determination? There are things you can do to help your child, and those include teaching them to be a self-advocate, to make choices, to problem solve. We want to involve them in their IEPs and other decisions in their life. And we want to help them practice these skills in many different settings, at home, at school, in the community, at a restaurant, in the grocery store, picking out clothes, giving them lots of opportunities. And that includes giving them opportunities to maybe not always make the best choice. For example, they want to wear short sleeves on a cold day. Well, we want to give them a little bit of flexibility to see, like, maybe I'm going to be cold because of that choice. And then helping them make a better choice. Because again, it's about agency in their life. There is one website that I really, really like, and I'm going to talk about it throughout the rest of the presentation, and it's called I'm Determined. And it's an initiative from the Virginia Department of Education and our technical and training centers. And it is a wealth of information to help children become self-determined adults. They have resources for all ages, from preschool all the way up to adulthood. It focuses on a wide variety of needs, but particularly it's for students with disabilities, but honestly, any any student can benefit from the resources they have on the website. And you'll see a variety of videos. Some of these videos include former APS students who have participated in the leadership of I'm Determined. So we'll talk a little bit about self-awareness. So one of the resources on the I'm Determined website is a template called All About Me. And this is a way to help students express their strengths, their interests, their needs, their learning preferences, and it can be customized. In fact, there's even an app that it can be done on. So it could be done on an iPad, or it can be done on a computer, or it can be printed out. And there are lots of different ways to fill it out. Here is one student filling it out for his teachers, and he used just a printed version. Here's another example where it's made more visual. It's color coded. There's pictures. So for a student who doesn't read or has limited literacy, having pictures to go along with it might be more meaningful. Here's another one that also uses pictures, but it includes a lot of photos. So they're all very individualized. One last one. Also used as shapes and colors. Okay, another one. And here's another way of doing it that was done in a classroom where they made a whole bulletin board for their All About Me. So rather than having one sheet of paper, they needed a lot more information. And it incorporated several aspects of their day, including their schedules too. But they each have their own bulletin board, but the All About Me is something that's really prominent on that bulletin board that they each have. Okay, some other options, as I mentioned, it can be done on a computer, and there are other worksheets that are not connected to I'm Determined that also are called student profiles and ask similar types of information. The next resource from I'm Determined I want to share with you is called a Good Day Plan. And this is a plan for how does a student have what their needs met in a given day. So we want to identify what happens on a good day, and does it happen now? What needs to happen to make it a good day, and who can help me? And this is great for kids who maybe have their days vary from time to time, or they need to learn how to identify what works for them, or we want to help their teachers identify what works for them. Or it may not even be related to school. It might be related to a visit to grandma's house, going to Disney World, going to camp. So a good day plan could be used in a lot of different situations, particularly those less expected ones and the ones that they don't have as much experience with. So if we were doing one for a student or child, if you were taking a family trip to King's Dominion, we would want to know what happens on a good day at King's Dominion. Well, it might include that you bring your headphones, that you bring a water bottle, that you have a visual schedule that they can look at that has the different rides. Maybe you check in with the park to see if they have any accommodations for children with disabilities, like being able to skip the lines. Knowing ahead of time where in the park they're going to be eating lunch, depending on what type of food they want, so you can be near it at around lunchtime. So those are the kinds of things that might go on a good day plan for an outing like that. For a school good day plan, it could be including things like having a good night's sleep, making sure you have breakfast, making sure clothes are picked out the night before, having the right fidget to carry on the bus, having, having somebody greet the student at the bus, a preferred person, walking them to their classroom, and so on. So again, it's going to depend on each child and the different situations that they may be in. Here is a goal sheet. That's another template that is on the I'm Determined website. And this is for a goal of learning to drive a car, and it identifies what they're going to need to be able to do to achieve that goal. Here's one a student made on to be a better reader. And on the left, I have a picture of, actually both pictures are some students doing their own goal sheets. So I want to talk to you a little bit about a self-determination club. And this is a group that I have at the Career Center of student leaders who are learning about self-determination. They're learning all of the domains that you just learned about. They're learning about the resources that are available on the I'm Determined website. They're taking those to heart. They're coming up with their own webinars, their own lesson plans, and going out and teaching younger children about them. They're going into elementary schools, preschool. They've done a couple preschool lessons. So they are all about self-advocating and other aspects of self-determination. And some of the activities that have included have, as I mentioned, working in different classrooms. You can see a picture of them there in a preschool room, mentoring other students with disabilities, teaching peers how to be involved in their IEPs. Some have gone to IEP meetings with younger students, training school staff and parents. They have come to some of our trainings before at the Parent Resource Center, raising awareness of disabilities and how they affect different people. Some of them have done Autism Acceptance Month activities. Some of them were involved in Neurodiversity Week in March, and of course having club meetings. And we have in the past done some large in-person conferences. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pull that off this year, but those have always been a really positive experience. And some of the ways that they're learning about self-determination as a club includes skits, games, hearing from each other, watching videos, teaching each other, attending the meetings, and having some guest speakers. Now I want to transition to talking about student-centered IEP meetings. So as I mentioned before, having a student at the table is really important. Learning the self-determination skills are often prerequisites, but they don't necessarily have to have a lot of direct instruction before and in the different domains I just mentioned to you before participating in their first IEP. When we want to have them at a meeting, we want to practice with them. If the meeting is going to take place in an unfamiliar location, like a conference room, or on Teams. Many students have a lot of experience on Teams, some don't. We want to practice that format beforehand. We want to have them practice asking questions or have some questions on their voice output device. We want to have social stories. We want to have them prepare an all about me slideshow, which I'm going to show you a couple examples in a minute. We want to make sure they understand the formal language that we often use with an IEP. What is an accommodation? What is a goal? What do these things stand for? What does IEP stand for? And include the students in writing and reviewing drafts of their IEPs. And there are lots and lots of resources on the I'm Determined website to help with this. So the way to involve our students in their IEP in a meaningful way means that we need to include them to the best of their ability. That doesn't mean forcing them to sit there for an hour-and-a-half meeting. It might mean having them come, say hi to everybody, eating a cookie, feeling comfortable, and maybe sharing a photo of something they've done this year that they're proud of, and then leaving. It can be minimal, but we want it to be a positive experience. And some other ways to make it a positive experience include making sure that if they are participating in their meeting, they have their needs met. That means maybe having food, a favorite food, so that, again, it's a reinforcing and positive experience. They have their fidgets if they need fidgets. If they need an alternative seat, they have an alternative seat. If they use a communication tool, that they have that available to them. We want to make sure that everyone seated at the meeting is really focused on the student and makes them feel comfortable. And one way to make sure of that is that we are talking with our children and not about them. When we have a child sitting in a room and we say, Jimmy did this, and he needs to work on this, and he's sitting right there next to us, that feels awful. They might as well not even be there. And because it's disrespectful. We don't want people talking about us that way. And so we have to make sure that everyone at the table is talking with our kids, to our kids. Having them present a presentation ahead of time that covers the main concept of their IEP can be really helpful too. We want to make sure that we're using language that they understand, trying to avoid jargon. And I talk with teachers a lot about this too, because we use way too much jargon in IEPs. And I know that's a challenge for you as parents. It's a challenge for our general education staff that join us for the meetings. And it's very much a challenge for our children. So it's okay for you to be advocates and say, can you explain what you mean by that? Or what does that acronym mean? Or, asking questions if it's something that's not clear. And this is sort of a scope and sequence of student involvement. At the very bottom of the list, the IEP takes place without the student present. And they can still offer some voice in that by giving them choices ahead of time, but that would be the least involvement. Then involving them, but not having a lot of participation. Maybe they just say hi, like I mentioned before. Next, we would have them present with, a little bit at their IEP, maybe showing a PowerPoint ahead of time or a video that they've prepared ahead of time. Next, we'll have them present and actively participating, asking them questions, making sure that they are able to follow along to the best of their ability. Next, we might have the student present and take responsibility for some of the IEP. And then finally, having the student actually really guide and lead the process, because it is their meeting. And with training and support and time, we have had quite a few students actually lead their IEPs. So the All About Me presentation, which I mentioned, is going to be unique to each student. It can utilize a lot of the self-awareness knowledge that they have gained from the different I'm Determined activities they've been working on. It can be in any format. It can be a PowerPoint, it can be animation, it can be video, it can be color, it's really limitless. And some of the domains that I recommend that be used include a list of participants, information about their disability, their strengths, their areas of need. And this will probably sound really familiar to you if you've gone through the IEP, because this is exactly what it is. It's just in a simplified form, rather than reading through each white piece of paper. So if we were doing a slideshow, this is a template that I have that many classrooms are using. They have their invitation list. They have their areas of strengths. They have their areas of need, the things that they don't like, their goals for adulthood, what they want to do, their accommodations, what do they need to support them and to have the best day possible. So again, they're using the knowledge that they've gained from I'm Determined, and their thank you page. And here is an example. Sarah Cornett did this one. And this is her introduction page. So she talks a little bit about herself, that she wrote this when she was in 13th grade. She is now graduated and is in college. She has identified her strengths, including working with other people, completing the tasks and assignments that she's given, following rules. And she's identified her areas of need. And again, this took training and support and time. And she wants to be better with money skills, managing her money, taking initiative and traveling more independent. She's identified what helps her learn. These are her accommodations. She understands her accommodations. And now that she's in college, she is the one who has to request them. It's not, she doesn't have a team of people or a parent or a case carrier that can ask for those accommodations and make sure that they are being followed and implemented. She's the one who has to do it. And this is why we have to start our children at a younger age in understanding what those accommodations are. And she's identified her goals and plans for the future, which she is following now. And she's also a volunteer with the ARC of Northern Virginia. And she's identified the kinds of jobs she wanted to do, her living arrangements for the future, which if you have a younger child, they're not going to include this necessarily in their presentation, because at that age, in elementary school, they're probably just going to say they want to live with mom and dad, and that's okay. In her thank you page. Here, next, we have an example of a video, and this is another way of presenting an All About Me, and I'm going to try and play it. Oh, okay, we'll do it this way. Can you see that? Can you see the video? Kathleen, are you able to see the video?
Not yet, Deb. Well, just that example of a video, I see the photo, but I don't see the video playing.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of when I switched
You want
it
me
from
to here? I
Google.
might be able to grab it from the Google Drive and show it.
The
Hang on.
Google Drive, yeah. That's
Bear with me for 1 sec.
so we switched formats, so I apologize for our technical difficulties.
Okay, just 1 sec, Deb.
I think I can I think I can switch my sharing and do it that way.
Okay, if you want to give it a try.
Share. Let me try that. I'm going to do desktop and see if that works. Can you see it now?
Let me come back to you. Yes, I think we can. Let's try that.
Wonderful. Okay, good.
Perfect. I don't know if we have sound though, Deb.
Welcome to my meeting.
There we go. We're good.
My disability is called autism. It is good. I need help. My strengths are adding, reading a story, and computer. need help with playing football. I plan to work and be the boss. I want to know all. You can help me by giving me food. I learn by doing. Thank you for coming.
See if I can get back to the presentation. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm glad that worked. Okay. Let me actually minimize this. Whoops. Nope, opposite. Go away. Okay, there we go. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do either. Thank you all for your patience as I work through the technical things. Okay, very good. All right, so thank you to Dr. Seuss for the artwork with our presentation. And I have some resources that you'll be able to find that Kathleen
Mhm.
will give to you. I've got a lot of determination websites in addition to I'm Determined. I know I talked about that one a lot, but there are others out there. And I do have a link to the Order of Self-Determination website as well, where you can see some examples of some of the webinars that the students have put together to teach other students. On the I'm Determined website, it's a lot to go through. So I have highlighted a few of the resources that I thought would be most useful to you, including understanding your IEP, the Good Day Plan, the self-determination checklists, disability awareness modules, anti-bullying and pro-inclusion resources, and their documents that are in Spanish. And I also have some resources for person-centered planning, which we didn't talk too much about tonight, but it's another more in-depth form of a student-centered IEP, where we really talk about where is the student going 10 years from now, rather than just 1 year, which is what IEPs generally focus on. A person-centered planning meeting, such as a PATH meeting, is something that we really want to do 10 years in the future. And it goes into a lot more areas that outside of school, such as recreation, transportation, things that we don't always talk about in an IEP because we're just focused on what the school is going to do. But a person-centered planning meeting really transcends that and talks about how or all the community resources that the student has. And that could be grandparents, siblings, Girl Scout leaders, other people in that child's life besides just the school and the family. So it's another way of supporting the student with their self-determination. And some books. And I'm going to stop share because I noticed that there are a lot of questions in the chat, I think, and I want to be able to answer them for you.
Okay.